Hello, everybody. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Good. I'm excited. This is one of my favorite topics, and I'm actually going to do this a little bit differently today than how I normally do it. So I'm actually I pre-recorded the presentation mostly because I get so excited about this conversation that I tend to run down a bunch of rabbit holes. So I was really strict with myself and made sure that when I put this together today that I wasn't going to go down any rabbit holes. So you'll have to help me make sure that 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 the recording is working. That's the plan. So awesome. I'm excited. Welcome you guys. And in just a second, we'll start going over onto Facebook, and we'll look at Facebook and get started. Anything I need to know before we start having great adventures here? I'm happy that Zoom is actually here. For those of you who tried to join us on Wednesday, our entire Zoom account disappeared spontaneously. So it was kind of interesting. So, Kristen, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good.
Okay.
Almost there. I just put on a bunch of our custom essential oils to go with our quantum alignment system, and it smells so good. All right, we're going live. Ready?
Ready.
All right, we should go live soon.
I'm not seeing it just yet.
Yeah, it's almost, hold on.
Yeah.
There we go. We should be live.
I see it now.
Yay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Friday. Woo, we made it, and the Quantum Alignment Show. So I am very excited today. I'm talking about probably one of my very favorite topics, which gets into the world of the weird and wonderful, mixed in with a little bit of human design and quantum physics and spirituality and our natural creative powers and just about anything else you can shove into that category. So it's a I got a fun show for you today. I was telling my people on Zoom before we logged on to Facebook that I actually I actually pre-recorded the show today for two reasons. One, we've had the wackiest technological stuff happen this week. And for those of you who were waiting to hear my conversation with Heather Ashamara on Wednesday and it never happened, I just want to tell you that we logged on that afternoon and our Zoom account had spontaneously disappeared. So we kind of had to pull back and go to ground zero, but everything in right timing. So join me on Monday at 1 p.m. Central, where I will have a brand new conversation with Heather Ashamara. We're going to be talking about unlocking your creativity. We're going to be talking about the Creative Reboot event that we'll be speaking at in September in Santa Fe on the 14th, 15th, and 16th. If you want to join us live in Santa Fe, I'm telling you this now so that you can scramble and get your travel arrangements made. There are very few seats still left for this event. I think the last time I talked to my friend Jacob, who's speaking as well, Jacob Norby, who's organizing this event along with Hierophant Publishing, I think they have like 16 seats left. So that's very small compared to how much they've sold. So if you do come to the Santa Fe event, and Kristen can post the link below, and you want to have lunch with me, send me an email. I'm actually hosting lunch for all of my human design people who come to Santa Fe, come to the event. send me a little note saying, hey, Karen, I'm going to be there. We will have lunch together, all of my human design people and me, on Saturday, the very first day, the 15th, after my presentation in the morning. So I'm going to do a presentation on quantum creativity and human design in the morning, and then we'll all go to lunch, and then you can go back and really begin the flow of this amazing event. I mean, the people that are coming to speak at this event will knock your socks off. And if you are struggling in any way with activating your creativity or feeling creative, be there, because it's going to be a very beautiful, nourishing, soul nourishing event. Julia Cameron will be our keynote speaker, and anyway, I just can't wait. And I can't wait to see you guys and have lunch with the people I'm going to have. I already have a list of people I'm going to have lunch with on Saturday, and it's going to be really fun, and I want you to be there. So, all right, that's the first thing I want to talk about. So Monday, I went down a rabbit hole already. It already started. Monday at 1 p.m., meet me back here. The event, if you're on Facebook, go to the events tab over on the left. That's the new information about my conversation with Heather Ashamara. And we're going to be talking about activating your creativity and why creativity is as vital as breathing. Today, we're going to be talking about the mechanics of prayer and how you can pray more effectively, how you can use your human design chart and the understanding that we get from the chart to make your prayers more effective, and to use conscious prayer as a way of drawing into your life experience the physical manifestations of what you want to be living. This is a conversation that I've had for a lot of years now. I pre-recorded this presentation today, so in a minute I'm going to switch it on and put it on for you, because as I said, I was wanting to make absolutely sure we weren't going to have any techno stuff today. I want you to really sit with this information, because it's different than maybe how you were taught to connect with Source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. And it's different, but it's not that different. It's actually, once you hear it, you're going to go, oh yeah, duh, I know this. But it's kind of cool to look at it in the context of human design. Before I share this information with you, I want to start with what has become my weekly disclaimer. So sit back and listen to me carefully. You all have all of the chart. So I don't want to get little emails that say, well, I don't have any of the prayer gates. Does that mean I can't pray? You all have all the charts. All of the chart. The aspects in your chart that are colored in are energies that you have consistently. The aspects in your chart that are white, those are places where you experience a variety of different ways that that energy works. You have inconsistency, so to speak, meaning you get a lot of variety there in your openness in the white parts of your chart, but you still have that energy. So sometimes I hear people say to me, I don't have this in my chart. We all have all the chart. Some of us have aspects that are more consistent. Some of us have aspects that are more variable, but you all have all of it. So you all can pray, and you all are designed to interact and interface with Source in many, many different ways. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that when we're done. None of us is designed to be floating around lost and feeling disconnected from Source. We are all able to access greater amounts of solutions, greater amounts of energy, greater amounts of power, greater amounts of influence, greater amounts of meaning, satisfaction, joy, abundance, you name it, when we know how to consciously connect to Source. So I'm going to shift gears here for a minute. And Kristen, I think if I remember how to do this correctly, I have to unplug my earbuds. So hang on for just a second.
Okay.
And you guys, once I start playing this, if you would do me a favor, if you would please post below either on Zoom or in Facebook, depending on where you're watching this presentation, and let me know that you can actually hear this, because I want to make sure that you really hear this. Hi, welcome to the Quantum Alignment System. I'm Karen Curry Parker. This is lesson 20 in the mechanics of you. And in this class, I want to talk a little bit about using your mind to leverage the quantum field, or what I sometimes lovingly refer to as the mechanics of prayer. So before I talk about the mechanics of prayer, particularly in the context of human design,
I want to just set you up for a very basic level of understanding about magnetism and how we measure magnetism. And most importantly, I want to introduce you to, or of course, for many of you, this is not an introduction, this is something you already know, but I want to talk briefly about how energy flows, in particular on this planet, and I want to talk about the power of toroidal waves. So when scientists measured the magnetic resonance field of the Earth, it looks something like this. This is a torus pattern. This is how a magnetic energy wave works on the planet. What's so interesting, and I'm not going to go deep into the torus here. If you want to really go study torus and toroidal patterns and magnetic resonance fields, those of you who are first line profiles and deeply investigative and highly curious, I strongly support you going to investigate it. But for all intents and purposes, here's what I really want to show you today that's relevant to what I'm going to teach you about the mechanics of prayer. The Earth's resonance field, the Earth's magnetic resonance field, looks like this. Scientists now know that the heart, our human heart, also contains a magnetic resonance field. In human design, we teach that there is actually a magnetic monopole located in the heart, and that magnetic monopole is responsible for attracting into your life experience opportunities and circumstances that help you live your life path and fulfill your soul's intention. When scientists measure the magnetic resonance field of the heart, it looks like this. Another way that we can imagine it or see it or envision it is like this, or taking it one step further, like this. You'll note that the energy flow goes out of the head center or the crown chakra and comes back in through the root center. This is an important piece that I want you to file away so that we can understand how we create. And the feedback loop, our manifesting process, actually has us dancing with on a daily basis, actually on a minute by minute basis. Before we go any further in looking at changing the nature of how we understand prayer and the mechanics of how we pray, we have to first start with a little bit of traditional human design, and where I might gently suggest that we change the nature of how we understand energy flow in the human design chart. We are taught in traditional human design that the name of the game, basically, in human design is to try to get as much energy as you can to the throat center. That the throat center is the center for communication and also the center for manifestation into action. If you think about the power of language, it's the power of language that begins to initiate things into form. We also look at the throat center because it is the configuration of the throat center that is part and parcel responsible for determining your human design energy type. As you may know, in the human design system, there are 5 energy types. Each type has a different way of making decisions, a different life purpose, and a different life path. If you're new to human design, please visit my website, www.understandinghumandesign.com, and go ahead and get your free human design energy blueprint. This is a customized energy blueprint that we handcraft for you. We personally calculate these charts for you, and you will need your birthday, birth time, and birthplace to get that information. If you have your human design chart and you want to learn more about it, please visit Amazon.com and you can order my book, Understanding Human Design, The New Science of Astrology. Or if you want just a mini overview, you can order the Human Design Activation Guide, which is just a really beautiful short introduction to the human design system to help you learn more about your chart and, most importantly, about your human design energy type. Back to the throat center. The throat center in traditional human design is taught as the source of our manifesting power. I'm going to put that model a little bit on our head or on your head or on its head, because the throat center is not really the source of our creative power. It's more like a gearbox. And the real source of your creative power is, first of all, within the entire chart. And secondly, it's in knowing how to leverage the parts of the chart and the energy dynamics of being human in such a way that you are actively grounded and present to the experience of your earthly life. And you are also at the same time consciously and deliberately and correctly tapping into the possibilities of the quantum field so that you can increase the leading edge of what you experience in life, meaning increase your capacity to create and to expand and grow in your life. Here are some things we got to think about before we go deeper into the how of what I'm going to show you. If we're serving on the leading edge of consciousness, then we're not just experiencing the leading edge. You're not some hapless victim out there just having it happen to you. You are creating on the leading edge. You are, in essence, the leading edge, and you are the creative medium of expansion in consciousness on the planet. If we weren't creating on the leading edge, there would be no growth. It's our feedback to what we create in our third dimensional, grounded earthly reality that causes our expansion. So let's talk about this in the context of human design. And most particularly, let's talk about this in the context of the 3 gates of the head center. So the gate 63, the gate 61, and the gate 64, these are the 3 gates that are at the very, very top of the chart, connected to the head center, which is the top triangle of the chart. The top triangle of the chart is responsible for the energy of inspiration. The bottom triangle, by the way, is the part that actually translates inspiration into possibility. It's the part that takes ideas, concepts, possibilities, and translates them into things like forms, imaginary forms, your imagination, creative forms, possibilities. It's a place where we translate inspiration into earthly possibilities. These 3 gates at the top here are the 3 gates associated with the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the gland that anchors us into our understanding and our perception of linear time. So consequently, linear time is one of the delineating factors of the 3rd dimension. So not only do these energies anchor us into linear time in our 3rd dimensional earthly experience, they're also the 3 gates associated with the pineal gland that connects us to what sometimes in esoteric sciences is called the 3rd eye. In less esoteric references, this is our inner knowing. Okay, we all are designed to have inner knowing. There are 3 different pathways that we have for inner knowingness. We have logic, which is being able to predict patterns and being able to predict the future based on patterns. We have holistic thinking or sensing, which is the capacity to sensually process the story and the emotional experiences of what has come before so that we tell the stories of what has come before to help us understand who we are. And there is knowingness. Some of us know because we know, or one of our paths of inner knowingness is simply knowing. You know that you know what you don't know how you know that you know, but you just know. Most of us are drawing on all 3 forms of inner wisdom. And that inner wisdom is activated and functions optimally when the pineal gland is open and healthy, which is a completely different presentation that we can talk about sometime very soon. But for you to really be able to be completely tuned in and tapped into not only your earthly experience, but also your connection to source or the quantum field or heaven or God or whatever you want to call it, you have to have a healthy pineal gland. And I will say that just really briefly, overexposure to electrical equipment, electrical magnetic frequencies, overexposure to screen time, fluoridated water, bad diets, being disconnected from seasonal variety in vegetables and fruits. These are just some things that can disrupt the health of the pineal gland. And actually, one of the things that they see in Alzheimer's is that there is a consistent history in postmortem studies of people who have Alzheimer's also demonstrate a notable calcification in the pineal gland. And if you think about Alzheimer's, it makes total sense. Part of what happens in Alzheimer's is we lose connection with the time flow of our life story, right? That being said, go investigate healthy pineal glands and how to keep your pineal gland healthy. Quick tip, the most effective and fastest thing you can do to keep your pineal gland healthy is get up and watch the sunrise. And watch the sunrise, literally watch it with your eyes. And if you can, catch a sunset. those two acts right there can actually recalibrate your connection to the time-space continuum that actually help you sleep better and actually helps your pineal gland stay healthy. Sometimes the pineal gland is referred to as the third eye. So it is this place of intuitive knowingness. It is the initiating cause or the initiating source of inspiration. Those three gates function through questioning. And if you think about the power of the mind, and if you think about the wackiness sometimes of what happens in our mind, what we know is that the bulk of what we think about is questions. We're always questioning, whether we're questioning ourselves, our own capacity, we're questioning each other, we're questioning whether things are true, we're questioning how things can happen, we're questioning why do things happen. We are designed by nature to question. And yet we are kind of conditioned and trained, particularly when we talk about being creative, we are trained to get a mental inspiration, an idea, an epiphany, aha, right? And to immediately take that inspiration and turn it into form, which is actually a very unnatural way to use the power of our minds. Our minds are not actually designed to figure things out. We're not designed actually to have answers, at least not in the mind. We're designed to question with the mind. So the gate 63, which is the one on the far right, is called, it's actually the initiating sequence of logic. It asks the question, what, or can you prove it? It's doubtful and suspicious to a certain degree by nature. It's the initiating sequence in the scientific process, right? Can this be true? The gate 61 is knowingness. This is the initiating gate in the knowing circuit. There's circuits in human design. That knowing circuit is about knowing something and not knowing how you know that you know, but knowing. And it's in that knowingness that we have tremendous power and wisdom, even though sometimes we doubt it because the 63 takes over and doubts our knowingness. The 64, the one on the far left, always gets these big, giant ideas and wants to know how. Well, how am I going to do that? How do I figure out how to make that happen? How do I make money with that? How do I get the opportunities to make that happen in my life? We're always asking these kinds of questions. And because the head center, that top triangle, isn't just a source of inspiration, it's also a pressure center. And most of us have it open or undefined. So 7/8 of you have the center open. Most of the time we are under pressure to try to answer these questions. And because we don't really have the answers, we're kind of making stuff up as we go along, which is part of the reason why sometimes things don't work out the way we thought they would, because what we were thinking was kind of confused or fantasy driven in the first place. And secondly, we're not supposed to act on what we think about. The purpose of our thinking is to trigger specific emotional responses, which I'll talk about in just a second. We are designed to question. You can use questions to heal and remove limiting beliefs and stories. You can ask questions like, is this true? Or you can ask questions like, what is my story? Or how do I feel about this situation? Or you can ask questions like, why? What is the bigger picture about what is happening to me? If any of you are familiar with the work of Byron Katie, Byron's Katie work is the perfect embodiment of these three questioning gates, and she so beautifully demonstrates the healing power of asking the right kinds of questions. Now, traditionally, when we think about inspiration, we think it comes down out of the sky or the heavens or whatever. We get that inspiration, poof, we get an epiphany, and then we figure it out, right? Of course, it's in the process of figuring out that we either doubt ourselves, get confused, feel overwhelmed, feel despairing because we can't figure out the how. We have ideas, but we don't know if they're the right ideas. We don't trust those ideas, and it gets really, really messy. You know, when people start talking about my thoughts create my reality, and you really start paying attention to what's going on up there, thank God that's not how it really works, right? So let's talk about how do we really use this powerful creative capacity that we have and how to tap into it in a way that doesn't cause us or leave us feeling self-defeated or distrustful of ourselves or inadequate in some ways. Learning happens best, growth happens best as a feedback loop. In fact, when we look at the cycle of mastery in the human design chart and how it's laid out, in particular through the logical sequence, but it's laid out in a lot of different ways in a lot of different circuits in the chart. We are designed to learn From what we learn, we are designed to change, we are designed to repeat, and we are designed to, from our repetition, continue to improve. We are engaged as part of our learning and expansion on the planet in a perpetual feedback loop. The feedback loop says this: if you're experiencing something in your life that's creating satisfaction, you allow it until you get bored, and then, of course, you want more. If you're experiencing something that is dissatisfying, something you don't like, it's supposed to trigger in you a desire, a want, an inspiration per se, or an engagement in the possibility of receiving or creating something different. In the science of deliberate creation and the way in which it's been taught by many teachers, here's where I want to lovingly and gently say, we need some tweaking, and maybe we have it a little bit wrong. And if we can recognize how our minds are hardwired and the purpose of that hardwiring and how it operates, it can actually give you more power to be more conscious in your alchemical or in your creative process. So let's talk about the myth of intention. We are taught that to create, to be deliberate creators, we have to affirm. We have to set our vision on a particular idea or an experience. We make vision boards. We make dream boards, right? We write affirmations. In fact, we've been trained how to write affirmations very nicely, especially in the last 20 or 30 years in the personal growth and development industry. We use affirmations to anchor in our heads, in our minds, an image or the possibility of or a vision of what we want to create in our life. And then we lock onto it, and we're trained to lock onto it and to hold that vision and to don't let that vision go and to visualize that vision every morning and to never waver from that vision. Well, the bottom line is the mind is not hardwired to envision in that way. Most of us don't have a mind that's even capable of holding on to a fixed idea. Our wisdom comes in our capacity to see ideas and possibilities from multiple different perspectives. And when we try to lock ourselves into a fixed perspective or into an affirmation or a vision, it's not only unnatural, it's seemingly impossible for a lot of us. Our minds are hardwired to ask questions, not to tell the universe what we want, but to ask. In fact, esoteric wisdoms of many, many different sources say when we pray, it is about asking, and it is from the asking that the answer is given. When you learn to, instead of telling the universe what you want, by the way, if you tell the universe what you want, you absolutely get it. Okay, I am not saying you don't get it, but it might take some time, because basically what you're telling the universe, this infinite source of amazing possibilities and potentials, when you're affirming or you're telling the universe what you want, you're telling the universe, hey, I know you're infinitely wise and you have huge number of possibilities, but I want this one tiny little thing. And so the universe now has to configure and conspire all the little circumstances to create this one particular opportunity for you. It's like asking the universe to push into your reality through the tiny little hole of a funnel. When we are asking, what would happen if? What is the possibility of? How could I create? What needs to happen for me to change this experience? We then seed the quantum field with an infinite number of potentials that match the answer to our questions, and that frees up the quantum field to then be able to bring into your reality, to collapse into your reality, a quantum potential that best matches your energy, best matches your life path and your life story, best matches your soul purpose and your soul intention, and best matches the answer that you need for the sake of your own growth and expansion. Asking questions uses your natural tendency to question everything as your creative power. And here's the cool part, you don't have to answer the question. All you have to do is pay attention, tend to your vibration, and then here's the cool part, going back to that Taurus, you wait and see what shows up in your outer reality. The answer reveals itself in our tangible third dimensional reality. And then we use our human design strategy by type and respond or react to that reality that manifests in our physical world. So most important thing to do in the process of praying, in the process of seeding the quantum field with possibilities that you would like to change around your current reality, that you would like to expand upon in your current reality, that you would like to maybe experience less of in your current reality, you have to ask questions. It's natural, it's in your hardwiring. When you ask the questions, when you use the power of the 61, the 63, and the 64, the 3 gates of the head, and the capacity that your pineal gland has to tap into super consciousness or the quantum field, when you ask the questions, that's the outer flow of the torus pattern. The bottom of the torus pattern reveals that the answer is brought to us and collapsed into third dimensional form, and then we get to decide, hey, I like this, can I have some more of it? Or hey, this isn't great, let's try something different. Can I have something different, please? You want to articulate your wants as questions. Keep them open-ended. Engage with curiosity and wonder. It is the nature of our minds to be curious and filled with awe and wonder. You are exploring possibilities from the edges of the universe. You don't have the answers, just the questions. Allow yourself to discover the next step, or allow yourself to be present to the revelation of the next step of what's possible for you. Pay attention when things show up in your outer reality to how they feel. Do the things that feel good, and then ask more questions, like how can I get more of this? If it doesn't feel good, then ask a different set of questions. What needs to happen for me to change what I'm creating in my reality? What needs to happen for me to be experiencing something different than this? Follow, again, this is so important, follow the ones that feel good and ask expansive questions. So I invite you, as you think about reframing the way in which we communicate with the quantum field or the universe, to really think about what are your current questions right now that you have about your life and your dreams and even your desires. Phrase those in question format. Use these question prompts as beginnings of your prayers. What would it take for? How can I consistently? What do I need to do in order to create? What is keeping me from? What needs to happen for me to become clear about? These are just some samples. You, of course, can create your own questions, but go forth and question and engage in the constant state of questioning. And while you're waiting for the answer to show up, keep your frequency high. Engage in acts of beauty. Expose yourself to things that feel good and kind and self-nurturing. Engage in compassion. Keep your heart open. Keep your energy high. And you will attract answers to your questions that match the frequency of energy that you're offering. The questions you ask and your imagination and keeping your emotional energy high calibrates your heart center. Your heart contains that powerful magnet that draws into your life experiences that match your vibration. Stay in the question. Give yourself the gift of relieving yourself from the pressure of having to have the answer. Stay in a constant state of imagination, wonder, and awe. And you'll begin to see a phenomenal shift in what you begin to create in your outer reality. I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation. I hope it's given you something to think about. And most importantly, I hope it inspires you to question anything and everything and to feel comfortable and joyful in your creative process of questioning what else is possible for you.
There, that's it. I actually got it done under an hour. So I wanted to keep this presentation to a really sort of manageable length, because first of all, sometimes this information it's just a different way of thinking about things. And as I was kind of scrolling through the Facebook comments when I was playing the presentation, I could see from your comments that many of you are already naturally doing this. And I wanted to just reconfirm for you that that's a powerful way of creating. And for some of you, especially if you've really been entrenched in the idea of affirmations or even vision boards to a certain degree, this adding a little subtle touch of questioning and staying open as opposed to dictating and sort of standing in this rigid place with our creative power, gives you much more flow and really lets you set your creative process up in such a way that you are more open to receiving what's possible for you. I also wanted to keep this presentation short because the last couple of weeks we've been doing presentations and we haven't had a whole lot of time for questions or even opportunities to look at charts. So I wanted to create some space today for just us to touch base and to talk about what's going on in your chart or with your understanding of your chart, or what's going on maybe in your experience of creating and conscious creation. This is a time when I really want to be present to your questions. And so I know we haven't had a lot of questions on Facebook, but I haven't seen anything. I haven't been able to look at the chats. Is there anything that's coming up on the chats, Kristen? And I really invite you guys, you can ask a question about anything. You don't have to ask a question just about what's questioning in the chart and in context of our presentation today. This is your time. So let me know if there are any questions about your chart in specific that you want to look at. Or not.
Just a lot of comments that people love the work of Byron, Katie,
Yeah.
and the way that you explain things. And this is a really great reminder. So that's
Yes.
from Facebook.
So I think I love that I saw Byron Katie a couple of years ago at Wisdom 2.0 in San Francisco, and I hadn't seen her in a lot of years, and I hadn't forgotten about the work because I go back to the work a lot, especially when I get really stuck on interpersonal stuff. It's a good place for me to go. And I was sitting in the audience listening, and I went, oh, duh, the work is literally the 3 head gates and that whole pineal gland that shifts and changes the story and where you anchor the story on your personal timeline. And when we start asking those questions, we shift our story, right? And when we shift our story, we are changing the nature of our timeline, our personal timeline. And when we shift our story, we change the energy frequency of who we are. And that's that process of changing the story, asking the questions, changing the story, waiting, seeing what shows up, seeing what inspirations reveal themselves to you, changing your identity, because when you change your story, you change your identity. And then we are recalibrating, consequently, the magnetic force, the magnetic monopole in your heart. And so when you change that story, you also begin to change the nature of what you attract into your reality. So your story begins to manifest a different physical, tangible, third-dimensional experience on the planet. Good. Cool. Any questions or comments? Anything you want to look at in your chart? Or not?
No, nothing coming up on Facebook or in Zoom. Oh, here we go.
Okay, so this is a great question. I can read it, Kristen,
Okay.
even though I don't have my glasses on. Bet says, I've been job searching for the past couple of months and just received an offer for a job that I'm not sure I should take. Any thoughts on how to frame up a question for this? Yes, I do. And I would also just encourage you, Bet, if you don't mind, can you put your type and your authority in the chat so that I can know that as well? So the way I might frame that question is, what needs to happen for me to have clarity around this job opportunity? Or can you give me a sign? We can ask for signs. We forget that sometimes, right? We think, I'm all alone down here on this planet. Ask for a sign, right? Can you give me a sign that would help me confirm in my inner knowing what's necessary for me to get clarity about this job? Or you could just simply say, should I take this job? And see what shows up. So sacral, generator sacral, 3-5 profile. Well, cool, at least you're not emotional. So, and I'm totally mean that as a joke, you guys. So the other option for you, Bet, is just for somebody to sit down with you and ask some sacral questions. Life is kind of easy for generators, especially generators who have splenic or sacral authority. Because when you have splenic or sacral authority, your authority, or your answers rather, your sacral response in the moment is true. So anytime you have a struggle for clarity and you're a generator, if you have a friend who you really trust and who knows you well, who can sit down with you and ask you a series of yes or no questions, that can really help you break through sometimes the, I don't know, this isn't right, or all the mental stuff that might kick in. So I might gently suggest that some questions for you might be, or some sacral questions might be, do you want this job? Is this the right job for you? Is this the right time for you to take this job? Is this job going to take you where you need to be to create mastery in your life? Is it okay to turn this job down? Is this job going to be healthy for you? Is this job going to support you in your growth and evolution? These might be some sample questions that somebody can ask you. And if your sacral's not getting anything at all, I know that's from Faith, but if your sacral's not getting anything at all, then there might be a different set of questions that we need to ask. So I will get to that in just a second, Faith. So Bet, I hope that gave you at least some segue on where to go. And look, you asked a question and voila, some answers already showed up. So Faith says, I'm having trouble finding what lights me to get out of a long-term bout of depression. I'm actually the exact same as above. Crazy. So a 3-5 generator profile. So here's what I'm going to say, Faith, for you. And first of all, let me just say that human design is a tool that is powerful for helping you activate vitality and strength and alignment. Sometimes if you are really literally dealing with a clinical depression, I might lovingly and gently say that humans, I might not have the answers for you if you're really in a clinical state of depression. And I just want to throw that out there because I don't want you to latch on to the idea that all the answers might be here, because there might be bigger answers for you or for anyone listening. That being said, you have an open emotional solar plexus, Faith, and you're not feeling vital and alive as a generator can feel. So the first question that I would ask for you is, who's in your field? Is there anybody around you who is emotionally defined who may be influencing your open solar plexus? Okay, I think I said sacral, but I meant solar plexus. So if you have an open solar plexus, which sounds like you do, is there anybody in your field? Are you living with someone, or is there someone around you who has more emotional definition? So I have an open solar plexus. My husband has the 3955, which gives him high highs and low lows. And if I'm not very careful, actually I work a lot with rutilated quartz because this helps me a lot. If I'm not very careful about teasing out, wait, whose energy is this? I forget sometimes, and I'll take in his wave and I'll be riding his wave thinking it's mine, and it's not. So that's the first question I would ask you. Is this your energy? The second thing, and this is maybe not so much for you specifically, but something to consider, and this is for everyone. You know, I find that, and this is a really huge statistic, but I would guess to make that probably 90 to 95% of my clients are in some way burned out. And when we create life, when we go out and we do life, and we do life in a way that's out of alignment with who we really are, and we let other people's energies hijack us, or we let our conditioning sort of override our true desires and our true nature of what's right for us. Because anytime we try to be something that we're not, it takes energy. Even if you're laying on the couch worrying about being someone you're not, or how you can fulfill being someone that you're not, you're burning energy. It's the way I always describe it to my students is this: if you go to a masquerade ball and you have one of those masks on a stick, right, and you're holding it over your face, you know, as the evening progresses, at a certain point, you're going to get sick of holding up that mask because it takes a lot of energy to hold it up. Even if it's light, you think, oh, it's light, how can that burn energy? But by about 10 o'clock, you're going to take that mask down. You're not going to hold that mask up anymore because your arm is tired and, you know, your wrist gets tired. When we create a facade of any kind, when we are living in a way that is not true to the heart of who we are, we burn out. And sometimes when we burn out, it's hard to get a sacral response, or it's hard to get any kind of a response, because what your sacral is really saying is, I need time to replenish my energy. I need time to nourish myself. This is also true if you have a defined will, or maybe I would say especially true if you have a defined will center. Oftentimes when we have a defined will center, we're pushing against ourselves because we have the willpower to do it until we burn ourselves out. If you have a defined root and you're feeling pressured to be something that you're not, and you've allowed yourself to follow that pressure, then that also can cause you to go into a state of burnout. So sometimes when people tell me, I just like my sacral's like bleh, and that's not an unusual thing to hear for me to hear. Sometimes it's burnout. And sometimes before you can really get that sacral to get back online, you have to just stop and do radical self-care and replenish and regenerate your energy. So good. All right. So a couple other things that came on. Lisa says, I'm having to find a new place to live in by October 1, but I am completely unmotivated to do so because I really want to buy a home, even though financially I'm unprepared to do so. So what I truly desire has not manifested. My question is, how can you manifest in a time crunch? Or can you manifest in a time crunch? So yes. So first of all, time is wiggy, because time is, as you know, is purely a third dimensional artifact. And the quantum field, when we start using questioning, sometimes what we're asking for, well, because there's no time in the quantum field, it's infinite potential. You know, sometimes that translation into the earthly time crunch is a little dynamic or tricky. So here's what I'm going to suggest for you to ask, Lisa. I would say, try these questions. What needs to happen for me to create a living circumstance? Let me start over so I do this slowly. What needs to happen for me to create a living circumstance that allows me to experience full support as I transition into discovering how I can create for myself a home that I own? How can I create a living space without feeling pressure? How can I find the motivation and the inspiration to take the next step necessary that's going to bring me towards owning my own home? How can I find a place of peace with my current circumstances so that I can find a foundation for myself in my living circumstances that will support me in creating a home that I own? Those might be some questions that I would encourage you to work with. And, you know, I might even say, and this is tricky, but this sometimes we don't like to hear this, but one of the things that happens sometimes when we have expectations, and this is a place where we all trip up. We have expectations about it's going to be this time, this way, on this time frame, and we want to be in exclusive control over the time frame and oftentimes over how. And it's not fun to admit this, but we're not really in charge of the how. We're in charge of holding the energy. And there's no way around the idea that your perspective and your focus is the most powerful energy that you have for creating. And sometimes when the expectations aren't met in the time frame that we want, we slide into panic or pressure or despair or anger or whatever other emotional energy that kicks up because we're disappointed or we're frustrated or we're feeling bitter or we're angry. And when we slide into those places, you're still creating. You're not ever not creating, but you're not necessarily creating in the direction that you want. And so as irritating and as annoying as it can sound sometimes, shifting your focus back to gratitude and looking at, okay, what do I have? What is working? Where is there already evidence that my house is on its way? And even though you might be having to look for the most minutia of evidence to demonstrate it to yourself, that perspective and that focus actually begins the opening of the doorway of creating a greater possibility for yourself. It's a discipline to drop back into that place of noticing. And I always say gratitude is just noticing with heart. And it's what we notice that we create. So getting back into that space and working through, working from that very beginning place. And, honestly, there are some days, and I certainly have had some of those this summer. I think the transits this summer have been horrendous. There are just those days when you're like, what can I be grateful for? Oh, yay, I know. I tied my shoelaces properly today. Woo, I'm grateful for that. And you have to start with those little tiny places and just build them up every day. It's like doing planks. If you haven't done planks in a long time, gratitude's like the plank, it's the plank muscle for the heart, right? If you haven't done planks in a long time and you're like, I'm going to do 5 minutes of planks today, you're not going to do 5 minutes of planks today. You're going to be lucky if you get to 20 seconds, and you got to just do, 20 seconds today and celebrate that 20 seconds. And then the next day, do 25 seconds and keep building it up. And, as I said, sometimes when it's not working out the way you want, the last thing you want to do is be grateful because, you're frustrated. But try it anyway, because it'll incrementally pop you back up into a different space of creating. The open root has pressure. The open root has pressure. So the undefined root has pressure. Kathleen says, I'm an emotional manifestor 2-4. I feel that it is easy for me to be affected by the emotional cycle of others, and I can't always tell that is what I'm responding to, and it's not my cycle. Any comments on this? Yes, certainly empathy and experiencing other people's emotional energies can come in the open emotional solar plexus. I also find that if you have an open G center, if you have the gate 19, which comes off the top right-hand side of the root center, if you have an open sacral, you may also really pick up on aspects of other people's shifts and changes in energies. So it may not be technically, by definition, empathy or emotional sensitivity. You still might be sensitive to other people's shifts and changes in energies. And I think that, when we talk about human design and we say there's this, and this, yes, it is the mechanics of understanding how we operate in the world. And so much can be explained by the mechanics, and there's a lot that can't be explained by the mechanics. And on the totally different level, in response to that question, Kathleen, we all interface with each other, and we are compassionate. And I think in this community, especially, so deeply attuned to each other because we are compassionate. And that sometimes it's not about human design, it's about being connected to the people around you and being aware of their shifts and changes. And that sometimes that awareness isn't rooted in the chart. It's not about mechanics, it's about the soul and the heart of who you are. All right, good. Any questions on Facebook? Kristen, I haven't been checking.
We have a lot of questions, but we don't have we don't have much time, so
that's okay. We'll start. Let's start, and I'll talk fast.
Okay, so the first one that was posted, and I'll just go from top down. I'm a projector 5'2", still stuck in my career choice after being a stay-at-home mom for 15 years.
And the question?
That was, I guess, how to pray for something. I don't see the question here. All right, let's go to the next one.
So hang on, just real quick. So what I heard was that you feel stuck, and so maybe the question might be, what needs to happen for me to create flow and to feel unstuck in my creative process? So maybe work with that. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't know if that's what you were asking me, but hopefully that covered it.
Okay, and then Therese says, I'm feeling unsettled about my upcoming move. Obviously, there's merit in it, but the unfinished business of what I'm doing where I am, getting the work I value to become part of my work life now, seems to be coming together a little, and it's pulling me and distracting me back to stay where I am.
So a couple of questions. Are you emotionally defined? Number 2, do you have an open G? And number 3, is there a way for you to structure your transition in such a way that allows you to come back and forth and complete what you need to complete in your present place so that you can be open to the transformation that's available to you through the change that you're wanting to create in your life. So those are my questions there.
She has an open G and an open solar plexus.
Okay, so couple of things to pay attention to. When you have an open G and you're moving geographical locations, it is vital that you place your physical body in that new space and feel where you are. And if that place feels right, then make that move. If you are making this decision based on your mind, or maybe you're not in control of some of the parameters and you've been to the place and it doesn't feel right, or it's starting to feel really wrong and uncomfortable, then you really need to, I would lovingly and gently encourage you to really feel into, is that actually the right move for you? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I need to know your profile. That's what I need to know next.
Her profile is a 5-1.
Okay. So the other part of the for you is making sure, because you're a first line profile, and for you to make transition, you have to have a lot of information. Really go study the possibility in this new space. Go explore and really literally study the possibility of you recreating what you want to create in your current life in your new location. And that means like literally doing research and making sure you have a strong enough information base to support you in making that transition comfortably. And honestly, I just want to say this for everybody. I wasn't actually kidding about the summer. The planetary transits and the energy has been and still continues to be rather dodgy. And I think a lot of us have experienced push me, pull you kinds of energies around transformation and change. And I certainly would say that in the last week, and as we move forward, slowly, we're going to start to see a more settling down of the uncertainty and the self-doubt and the questioning and the confusion. And I would say everybody to a certain degree has experienced those energies. So I certainly would also encourage you to just sit with it a little bit more. Hopefully you're not under pressure to make change too quickly. But as I said, make sure it feels good to you there, make sure your body feels good there, and do your research. And sometimes that can help you make that transition. So next question, Kristen.
Okay, Scarlett asked, she says, I'm a 3-5 splenic projector with an open head. How does asking for clarity or asking for a sign play into getting out of a job that no longer feels right?
So here's the question. What needs to happen for me to create the kind of work that supports me financially, that fulfills me creatively, and allows me to live my purpose in a meaningful way? And that's it. Just ask that question. And this is the second part in the creative process. Once you ask that question, use your mind, and do this every morning until you get bored with it. Use your mind to take yourself on an imaginary journey with this new job that hasn't emerged yet. So do really play with, sorry, dog, play with your imagination, play with your creativity, play with keeping your energy in a good place. And as you continue to anchor that vibration of that new job, that new experience, that new creative process, as you keep anchoring that on a daily basis and kind of imagining yourself sort of putting it on your timeline, then start paying attention to what shows up. Where is there evidence that it's happening? Where, you might not get a personal experience, but you might just see in your field that all of a sudden people are starting to get different job opportunities, or you're starting to pay attention to different things. The process of using your imagination and asking the question, it does two things. That process of asking and dreaming, or asking and imagining together, is kind of like, you can imagine that your brain and your mind and your human experience is like Google. When you dream and you ask a question, it's like you're putting something into the search engine, and you start programming yourself to start noticing places where that possibility is going to show up. And the more you start noticing, this is kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier, the more you start noticing, even if it's tiny little things, like maybe you walk by a newsstand and there's a magazine on the newsstand that talks about the latest new hot tech jobs. And you go, oh, I'll pick this up and look at it. And you start flipping through it and you go, well, that would be cool, or that would be interesting. Even something as little as that is a sign. It's evidence that your outer reality is beginning to adapt to the creation or the collapsing of a quantum potential into your field. So, okay, one more question. See, we had questions. Last one.
Okay, so how do I balance my projector personality, which is a 3-7,
3, 5,
and 1858, with my unconscious manifestor body, 2145?
Okay, hold on. I have to see that question.
Okay.
Because that didn't make sense. And I can't pull it up on Facebook. Can you post it? Can you paste it into the chat on Zoom?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Quick sec. Every time I get out, it always pulls me away. So hold on.
I hear you. Okay, so while you're doing that, I will say this. Your natal chart is going to be always what overrides everything. When you put all the chart together, the black and the red, the natal configuration of the type is your type. So even though you may have an unconscious manifestor design, you're still a projector. The projector, once they get invited, can behave like a manifestor in relationship to whatever they get, to whatever you get in your life as an experience. So you don't have to find balance between projector and manifestor. What you have to do is really live manifestor really live projector, so that when the invitation comes, you can step in with the power that is innately yours. We think sometimes, especially with the projectors, that the projectors are not powerful. And let me just say that projectors are incredibly powerful. Think about what you're doing as a projector. You're amplifying energy.
No,
right?
she's a manifester. She's
Oh,
a
okay.
manifester, but she has projected channels.
Got it. Okay, I got it.
And
Sorry,
if you, I don't know if you can see that link, I sent you her chart, but you can't share it. Sorry.
I'm not gonna share your chart, but I'm gonna look at it because I don't want to.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you are a manifester. You are an ego manifester, and all I'm gonna say to you is act like an ego manifester, meaning the projected channels for you are going to be. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You have an ego manifester. You have a will center to the throat. Anytime you have a will center to the throat, you get your cues for your creative flow from your physical reality, because the will center is all about the material plane. So for you, the idea of looking for signs and following signs for your creative flow is important. It's going to be tricky for you with your projected pieces, especially that 10-20 that you have, for you to share those in a way that confers upon them the value that they deserve. So the piece that I'm just going to say for you is just inform the heck out of everybody that's around you all the time. And even if you don't wait for somebody to ask you for those projected pieces, if you're informing ahead of time, if you say things like, I have some insights and I'm going to tell them to you right now because I think that they could really help you. And you don't have to do it in a boastful way. You don't have to do it in a big pushy way. You just say gently to someone, I have some insights that I think are going to help you. I'm going to share them with you because I think, this could really make a difference for you. The bottom line is people aren't always going to like what you have to say. And your challenge is to divorce your sense of self-worth and your self-value from other people's response to that. Again, if you're informing, and you can inform as much as possible, which is not natural for the manifestor, but saves a ton of time and saves a ton of energy, you can inform the heck out of everyone. It'll soften some of those sharper projected pieces in the chart. And the more you stand in your own value, the more you stand in your own understanding of how precious you are and how powerful you are, and you really embrace this idea that you are love-worthy, that you are valuable, when you can stand and hold that energy and not go out into the world feeling like that you have to prove your lovability or prove your worth or prove that you know or prove that you have whatever, the more you can just stand in your own value, the easier it's going to be for people to ask you for what they need instead of you feeling like you have to tell them what they need to hear. So that should soften and change some of that energy. So, all right, last but definitely not least, if you love this information about the mechanics of prayer and you love thinking about and looking at human design as a tool to not only discover who you are and create an authentic life, but to also use the chart as a vehicle for spiritual awakening, for deepening your capacity to consciously create in conjunction with spirit as source. Our September Human Design Community class is going to be about the mystical circuit. Actually, the title of the class is The Mystical Circuit, Your Soul's Path to Awakening. Over the course of 14 days, you're going to get a daily short video along with online daily inspirational videos and assignments in conjunction with a community. And we're going to all work together in this community to really explore elements of the mystical circuit, which is what I talked about last week. This is, as I said, our Human Design Community class for the month. Once a month, we have a community class. Those classes are available to everyone. Your registration in that class is on a sliding scale. The suggested registration fee for this upcoming class is $97. We work collectively to generate the revenue that we need to make the class go, so that I can pay Kristen and Cindy and Zoom and all the other platforms that we use to make this class, all of our classes, a really cool, interactive, powerful way of learning. I'm going to post, or Kristen just posted, a link to the registration for the Mystical Circuit class. We are starting on September the 9th. So starting on September the 9th, you get a daily video with a lesson. In this program, we're going to look at the pathway to the soul's awakening in the chart and how to use the energies in the mystical circuit to consciously and deliberately create what you want in your life, how to activate your manifesting skills, how to activate your manifesting energy, and how to discover and align your higher purpose with your life purpose so that your life becomes a reflection of all the complex and beautiful facets of the truth of who you are. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's all in the link in the website and we've run over, and I want to be mindful of Kristen's time and your time, but thank you all for joining me. I look forward to seeing you. I won't be here next week, but we have a guest host next week. Do we know who it is yet, Kristen? Or we're still playing?
We're still waiting for confirmation,
Okay.
But as soon as we know, we will definitely post it.
Yeah, we'll post it, and join us here Monday at 1 p.m. Central for a special live event where I'll be talking to Heather Ash O'Mara about creativity. So have a great weekend, you guys. Thanks, Kristen.
Awesome. Bye.